Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, March 29th, 2017. How's it going for you? The president is awake and anger tweeting, I see. I don't know what he's on about, but I did know that somebody says they were checking on him and he's up and tweeting angrily, at least as of 8:01 a.m. He's angry at the New York Times. Can you believe it? We'll answer him. I'm not the New York Times, but, they have difficulty speaking for themselves. I figured I'd give them a platform that someone was interested in, and we'll take a couple of shots back. It is Wednesday. That means Joan McCarter Day. Thankfully, we have our computers up and running, and we're back on the scene so she can join us. And Greg Dworkin will be with us this morning as well on his new schedule, so we can catch up with everything that's in the news. And, well, I don't know. Perhaps today we set a lot more of the esoteric aside. Some programming news. On Friday, I will be away from the desk during the morning, but I am already hard at work on putting together an all-new pre-recorded episode of the Kagro in the Morning Show so as not to leave you in the lurch once again. I think the next 2 Fridays I've got some business to attend to. First up this Friday, an event at the school, so you don't want to miss out on those opportunities to go see your kids do some fun stuff over at the school this Friday. Next Friday, some travel as their spring break begins. As a matter of fact, I should probably start planning for some pre-recorded episodes throughout that spring break week, because who knows where travels may take me at that point. But I don't want to leave you without a show after having been off the air a couple of days for computer difficulties. Nonetheless, having a bang-up month this time around. We'll miss our target, I think, maybe just by a little bit. I was hoping to get over 100,000 Libsyn downloads logged this month. We came, that close to doing it last month, and last month was February. So that's a little unusual. Short month. Anyway, Daily Co's Radio is live. Now, you can tell by the fact that I am reading you a tweet from Bill in Portland, Maine that says we're live now. True fact. Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman, broadcast from a condo inside which a huge Civil War battle was fought. Very true. The sink of blood, I guess, is what we have here. So many people were killed trying to get from one side of my kitchen sink to another. Well, gee whiz. It happened during a war, so I think it's safe to assume people were shot. I think that's probably true. What do you know? How do you know? Were you there anyway? What are you, a plumber? Okay. Thanks, Bill, for starting us off with that one. Lots to watch today. Greg Dworkin already has, wow, look at this. I think 18 messages have come through this morning on various blurbs and bits and articles and pieces and tweets and storifies and tweet storms and tweet light sprinkles, I guess, that are all over the place. So looks like we're already ready to go there. Yesterday, you will all have noted, I think the big legislative story, and no doubt Joan McCarter will have something to say about this. Big legislative action yesterday was the House's approval, it seems, of something that passed the Senate the other day. Another one of these Congressional Review Act regulatory rollbacks. This time, I guess, something that frees up online or internet service providers to sell all sorts of, I guess, personally identifiable browsing history information, among other things, to any commercial clients. In other words, to let them know what websites you have been to, what you visited, what you've looked up, and God only knows what else they're telling people. Probably everything that they can, anyway, I'm sure. It's all very valuable information. I've been wondering a little bit about whether or not Steve Bannon and the Mercer's Cambridge Analytica stands to benefit greatly from this. I can't tell. I'm not sure where I come down on this one. On the one hand, you would think that they would benefit very greatly because they could buy up all this information that they could be plugging into their supposed, artificial intelligence, big data overanalyzing of everything, parsing everything down to the individual voters and doing the targeting that they do. But we're not sure yet whether or not that's a real thing. whether it works, whether they're really selling just snake oil over there. So they either it could empower them to get real information on a scale that wasn't available even to them before, and turn them into some kind of super machine to set loose on behalf of Republicans and conservatives in elections and God knows who else around the world. Or I suppose it's possible that, they seem to claim that they already have most of this information through their own methods, and competitors are playing catch up. And it might be best for them if they're able to simply buy the stuff and then stand on an even playing field with Cambridge Analytica vis-a-vis the amount and type of personalized information that they have. I don't know. I'm not really sure where the benefits in that one lie, but I imagine that Cambridge Analytica is pretty excited about the idea anyway of opening up a new world of verified information about you and the people around you and what that means for your voting. We'll see. I don't know. For some reason, it came up today because I noticed Olivia Knox sort of musing about how amazing it would be if Trump vetoed that weird legislation. I don't know what chance there is of that. I don't know if that's just something he was musing about out of left field or whether it's something he's actually talking about. Who can tell? No one knows what Donald Trump is up to these days. He's a nutcase. Lots more information in the news today about Paul Manafort, too. That continues to be a big story. That a big part of what we've been rounding up. Oh, here comes Greg. Let's make sure we get Greg. Wow. Are you, is that me? Did you hear static on that, Greg?
I hear a little bit, yeah.
I heard a tremendous amount.
Wind there.
Yeah, it sounded like you were maybe at the beach or something, but I think, I don't know. That could be on my end. I moved, so,
Well, now it's better.
Yeah, all right. That seems to be okay. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. I saw something along the lines, and you and Joan are the experts on this, but it sounded like Rand Paul was one of the sponsors of the privacy legislation that's screwing people's privacy, the Mr. Libertarian guy.
Yeah, I saw something. I just retweeted that yesterday when I saw it, and I think it may have been Joan that may have sent that along. I don't know. I didn't check into it. I took whoever's word it was for it. But yeah, that's pretty amazing that would be something.
It seems like a very strange thing. I'm hearing your voice fade in and out, so I'm going to try to call back just to see if it's anything at my end.
All right, that's easy enough to do. Takes about 2 seconds. It leaves me without anything to do while you're calling. But I'll just sit here and I'll sit by the phone and wait. Here we go. All right, let's try this connection.
Hey.
This is a totally different line.
Oh, well, this sounds great.
I don't know. That sounds pretty good to me. We got another computer out there decided to handle this call, I guess.
Good. So I'm no computer expert by any means, but when I saw that, I was reminded I actually use something called a virtual private network, a VPN.
Yeah.
So you can buy them and basically at a time. And what they do is they direct your computer to their server, and then their server makes the inquiry into, let's say, looking up stuff on the New York Times or wherever it is you want to use your browser for.
Yeah.
So the browser history suggests that it's, in my case, I'm using something called Hotspot Shield. So it's their servers that are making the request, not mine.
That sounds
not my
good.
computer. So the IP address is a little bit slightly randomized. It's not perfect, but it makes it a little more difficult for them to track exactly what you're doing.
Okay. I'm
now,
proud of what I'm doing.
if you use such a thing, generally there are some free services that you can use this for, but you'll have to see some ads. Or you can purchase, and there's 3 or 4 or 5 different ones that you could use. I don't know that one is any better than the other, but just be aware that some of the factors in picking these things are how many servers do they have, and are you sacrificing speed for privacy?
Okay.
And
yeah, that's a big issue. I put a piece aside just for my own use, but I guess we ought to start collecting these things and maybe put them up on a web page somewhere. I put aside a how to set up a VPN in 10 minutes for free.
Right.
And why you urgently need one article.
It took me about 3 minutes to do, so it was relatively easy. And the other thing I like about this is that there's an on-off button. So if you happen to go, let's say, to a local restaurant site that doesn't like these things, you could turn it off and order food and then, put it back on if you want to.
I don't want them to know what I eat.
Right, but, sometimes you get to a site that just doesn't like this.
Okay.
Apple didn't particularly care for it when I was trying to download the latest version of the operating system from my iPhone when I was trying to update it yesterday, so I had to turn it off to get that and then turn it back on.
Oh, okay.
For example. But, if you have a switch, you could do that, and I do at the top of my menu bar. It's just easy.
That's a good idea. I think we all got to move to stuff like that, so if you've got any suggestions that you think other listeners or any human being that you might communicate with over the Internet might be interested in, you can all share them, and maybe I can put all these together. Maybe I'll get something done for myself.
Yeah, you have an article. I saw an article recommending various editors' choices from PC Magazine in terms of what they liked in terms of VPN, so I can send that along to you.
Sure, that's all good stuff, and we might as well compile it all, and maybe just really we should probably put up a page somewhere. Actually, Daily Kos should just probably host something and say everybody can browse this stuff for the varying levels of protection you might be seeking, from easiest to most involved, but best protection. And I'm sure we have some experts who could fill that in, too.
That's right. And the easiest thing to do is simply ask one of them to write it up.
Okay. Let's see. Now, I missed everything he said there. All right. Let's try this again.
Hey.
Well, I still hear some static, but I can't tell whether it's happening here or there or what, but every time you call back it's better, but we can't do that all day.
Yeah, but then your voice fades out and all of a sudden I can't hear you.
Well, I wonder if, who knows what's going on. We'll try our best to continue on.
So, I've got a couple of pieces here that go over some here. I'm going to start with this one from U.S. News called Reality Bites, the GOP's healthcare meltdown. Quashed 3 big Republican myths.
Okay.
Of interest. And one of those 3 myths that this whole process is quashed. Number 1, that there's a unified Republican government in Washington. 2, that Paul Ryan's a policy genius. The biggest Republican fantasy of all is that Americans want government to health care. And none of those things are true. Because none of those things are true. The bill that Republicans will not make this CBS.
I'm having terrible trouble with this. I wonder if I can switch headphones. I wonder if that will help me any. Because I can hardly hear you.
There you go.
Oh, okay, well that's better.
That's much better, whatever you did.
I didn't do anything, which is amazing.
So we got these 3 Reality Bites points here. Unified Republican government in Washington, Paul Ryan is a policy genius, and Americans want government out of healthcare, none of which are true.
Oh.
And so that's one of the reasons why the bill went down. There is a fascinating piece, in the New York Times, which is one of the reasons I think Trump was so mad at them today and was tweeting about it.
Okay.
Right? This one is called The Republicans in Power, From We Got This to What Now, written by Carl Hulse.
That makes me mad, too. Republicans in power. I'd be pissed.
Yep. The new Republican government is in deep trouble, it starts. And you can see why Trump's getting mad. President Trump and his majorities in the House and Senate had hoped to head out for the spring break celebrating the chest-thumping accomplishments of finally gutting President Barack Obama's health care law and installing a conservative Supreme Court justice.
Who?
It's interesting because even that is a little bit up in the air right now.
Yes.
If the Democrats stick together, they can filibuster Gorsuch. If they do, it is no longer 100% clear that Republicans have the votes they need to overcome filibuster.
Okay, right.
It's not clear.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of people getting a little shaky about this nomination and about everything. I mean, as the Russia investigation proceeds.
Yes, exactly. As a matter of fact, I like the headline in Politico on this. I have it at the end of the pundit roundup at the very bottom. I have a little tweet to that effect. But basically what it says is, reeling GOP desperate for a win on Gorsuch. This is as close to must win as it gets for President Donald Trump and the GOP after last week's healthcare debacle. And he may need a straight flush to beat a filibuster. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, Carl Hulse goes on to say, after the health care legislation unraveled in mortifying fashion, leaving Republicans unable to follow through on their central argument for being put in power, they'll probably get their justice. But the confirmation of Gorsuch is likely to require partisan maneuver that'll inflame the already tense Senate and basically make it difficult to do anything else. John Feary, Republican strategic advisor, often on MSNBC because he's a friend of Chris Matthews, says, right now they look like the gang that couldn't shoot straight. And this is true. So there's that one article. The next article from the New York Times by Jonathan Martin is 2018 Dilemma for Republicans, Which Way Now? On Obamacare, and talks about the fact that they don't really know what they're doing and what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, that's a problem for them.
Meanwhile, yet another New York Times article, coal miners hope Trump's order will help, but few are counting on it, and going through the ways that coal is simply not coming back. It's all due to market forces, and there are more jobs available in the clean energy sector. So Trump is screwing up the world basically at a peak so he could thumb his nose at Democrats while accomplishing almost nothing for his own people. So you have all of that, and then you have, I think those are the reasons Trump was mad. This one isn't something to get mad about, but a fascinating piece by Nate Cohen, a 2016 review. Turnout was not the driver of Clinton's defeat. It isn't that people didn't show up. It's that there were a lot more people who switched from Obama to Trump. And that's really what made the difference. And now Nate Cohen goes on to make the point that these are persuadable people, and if turnout played only a modest role in Mr. Trump's victory, as he writes it, because the New York Times always calls him Mr. Trump.
Yes. Well, he likes it when people do that, though.
Yeah, instead of the orange crap goblin, which most of us call him. He flipped millions of white working-class Obama supporters to his side. Voter file data makes it impossible to avoid this conclusion. It's not just that the electorate looked too Democratic. In many cases, turnout can't explain Mrs. Clinton's losses. And so people didn't stay home. What happened is they flipped. If they flipped, they're persuadable. If they're persuadable, that fits in with my argument about why we should go out of our way not to automatically shame them. We should ignore the deplorables and do whatever you want with them. But there are a group of people who once voted for Obama that then went on to vote for Trump that made the difference in the election. And many of them are completely irrational. They don't even know why they voted. A lot of them would have been Comey pushed because of that 11 day before the election second.
Right, certainly could be.
And we have data to support that as well. But they're not necessarily totally lost to humanity, and that's been the point that I'm making with data to support it even more now that we have voter file rolls.
Yes, they're just extraordinarily foolish, but we love them anyway or something.
It's in every election, because had they voted for Clinton, for example, they'd still be just as foolish, but we wouldn't mind.
Well, that's true. And also, so is the second part. Okay, so that's a pretty good statement. Both parts of those. Okay, I'll agree with that. Yeah, it wouldn't concern me at all how foolish they were at that point.
Now, how is this working out? Working out pretty good. Josh Krasauer has a piece in the National Journal which is free from the paywall, at least until April 4th, which is entitled, Dems Could Take the House in 2018. The GOP majority looks shaky with Trump deeply unpopular, and he's still like at 36, 37% in the Gallup. Democrats highly energized and vulnerable Republicans facing tough votes ahead, including on taxes and such. By the way, just to make that point, I'm going to sneak over to the Real Clear Politics average. Happens to be on my computer where I could find it. President Trump's job approval. Approve is 41.9 and disapprove 52. And the latest Gallup they have was 36 approve and 56 disapprove, so it's a 20-point difference. CBS News out this morning has a minus 12. Rasmussen, which had been favorable to him, was a minus 10. The Economist is a minus 5. Reuters Ipsos from mid-March was a tie. Quinnipiac was a minus 19. So these are not good numbers, and they're not getting better. In fact, they're getting worse if you look at the graphs over time. So Trump truly is an unpopular president. And what's interesting is that unlike when Bush was unpopular, people are actually saying it, which is somewhat refreshing. I remember being tremendously put out when Bush was terribly unpopular, but nobody would say it, and they kept referring to him as the popular president because of what happened around 9/11.
Huh. Yes, I do recall that was the case.
Mm. So we're looking specifically now, Nate Cohen, another piece, why Democrats have a shot in a Georgia district dominated by Republicans. We're talking about the special election in Georgia 6, which is going to replace Tom Price, who's now at HHS. And John Ossoff, the Democratic candidate, is actually doing fairly well, and he's doing fairly well in early voting, which does not mean he's going to win. The Republicans are still favored, but will do better than anybody thought even a month ago. And we'll see what happens there.
That'd be great.
We'll see how toxic the Trump name is.
Yes, it would be. It would be pretty toxic if he were to win that race. That would be pretty amazing.
It would be pretty amazing. We have USA Today with a big story. Trump's business network reached alleged Russian mobsters. So,
what?
There's a lot of stuff at NBC about Manafort and the amount who was Trump's ex-campaign manager.
A very limited role.
Very limited role, the way Jesus had a very limited role in the Bible.
Right.
So it turns out, and Mick Jagger had a very limited role with the Rolling Stones. So it turns out Manafort had multiple fake companies in Cyprus and was laundering money, and it's pretty easy to see why the FBI is investigating all of this. But the fact that Jared Kushner also met with some Russian businessmen and didn't tell people about it suggests that the looking into Russian ties with businesses in Russia, some very unsavory ones, may extend to the actual Trump family. And that brings it very close to home. And it may well be that and not manipulating the election is what Trump is trying to protect by not releasing his taxes and by trying to stonewall every investigation possible into what's going on between Trump and Russia in terms of ties, collusion, and or meetings and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think they're related in the sense that, I think he'd been laundering money and taking dirty Russian money for a long time. And then if there was ever any discussion about either outright manipulating the election or maybe we could give you a hand, I think he was just more receptive to it because it's been great. I've made a lot of money off of you guys, and you guys have been sending me money for a long time. Now you say you want to help me win? All right, go ahead. That's great. That might be the extent of the collusion from Donald Trump personally or those very close to him in terms of agreeing to something like that. I think that if it happened, the details were handled elsewhere. But they're related, and it should be pretty easy to prove. And you could probably, if in an honest world, you'd get rid of them on either grounds. We don't live there, but it's well worth pursuing it anyway.
Right. So long and the short there is that with Devin Nunes essentially putting the House Intelligence Committee look at Russia-Trump ties on hold because of his own ineptness and his activities that make him look less than impartial, it's now going to be up to the FBI to continue their probe, which is going to be the main thing. And we'll have to see whether the Senate Intelligence Committee, with Mark Warner making threatening noises about taking up the investigation at their end, and we'll have to turn around and see whether or not increased calls for special prosecutors happened. It's interesting because you're starting to see it from Republicans now. Walter Jones, I think, was the first one from the Republican House who said you need an independent prosecutor. And David French, writing in National Review, said the same thing. So we'll see. There's a ton of Democrats who basically have all said that.
That guy was almost president.
Every Democrat on the Intelligence Committee has said that Devin Nunes can't lead anymore.
Yeah, well, he certainly can't lead that committee. He's angered everybody by refusing to share any of the information that he got when he got it, which is kind of basic for a chairman. But, all right, well, I'm glad it's spreading. Walter Jones is usually first out of the box on a lot of things like that. So that's good. He was the first of the Republicans to kind of change his mind on the Iraq War. All right, well, sorry, not sure exactly how that went. Oh, there we go. One more shot at saying goodbye, I guess.
Were you able to hear any of that?
I heard you wrap up. But yeah, something's going real crazy here, and I'm certainly getting the note that it's going out as static too. So I'm not certain what we can do, but we can just wrap it up and cross our fingers and hope it goes away.
Which is my tech treatment for most things.
Yes.
Just whack it on the back and that doesn't work. I wrap it in water. Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, thanks. Will do, Greg. Take care. We'll give it one more shot at getting everything ready. Sorry about the interruption here. And let's see. It seems to clear up when the Skype connection is cut. So I'm guessing it's just... how come they're not asking me to rate this call? That's the real question. Okay, well, Canadian Pundit wants to... Please, everyone, please donate. I would say I'll add to this. Donate to save Greg from the hurricane. It does sound like he's weathering a hurricane on the beach. And I'm like unplugging my earphones. I'm wondering, is there any way to connect this to the fact that you actually did use the double stick tape on the earphone pads? Is it creating some kind of interference? I don't know. I think it's just we were having a terrible day with Skype, but I do notice that they're nowhere to be found on asking me to rate that call. Interesting. I think there's a conspiracy going on. Okay. Well, I suppose that's good news in that it's unlikely to continue. And if you can hear me now, and it certainly seems like you can, let me just check around and make sure that there's no other, let's see, I see, Justice says Greg's feed is all static, and he hasn't typed any notes to me yet saying, I don't hear you, you're gone. And none of you have tweeted that yet either. So I'm guessing we're good. Let's see. Nicecast continues to insist that we're on and broadcasting strongly. So we'll just pretend none of that ever happened. Cross our fingers that it doesn't happen to Joan that way when she calls in. And we'll check all our equipment overnight and see if we can't figure out what it is. And if not, we'll just blame it on Skype because they're not here and they're not listening. We could probably get away with that one. Justice says this is good on this side. I'll be interested to hear how the podcast tape comes out on that one. I'm sure we'll have the static and it'll be terrible and it'll encourage all of you who are listening via podcast to fast forward to over here and possibly this will make no sense to you. Okay. Well, everything seems to be up and working, so we're going to use the rest of the first hour here to wrap up on news and getting the rest of these stories out for your edification. Let's see. Oh, you know what I saw? Here's something I have to dig up on this. I was in the middle of telling everybody what we were going to be doing for Friday and next Friday. And it occurs to me now that having read some of the stories for to pre-tape them for Friday, now I'm confused as to what did I actually do on the show versus what did I read yesterday but not yet broadcast. There's a couple of pieces here. Yeah, I think Manafort was the focus of yesterday's show. The show, just to tease you for a little bit about what's coming up on Friday, is a little more Bannon-focused, if you're interested in that. And generally, that and maybe a little bit wider exploration of some of the Russia stories. But the Bannon stuff is in the can, as they say in the business, which is not my business. I just see it on TV that they say things like that. Like Greg mentioned, more news on Manafort this morning from CBS News. Doesn't seem to expand greatly on the story, but it's always worth noting when it breaks into the network level of mainstream media. Manafort linked accounts on Cyprus raised red flag, and I guess they had some local help on this, or perhaps somebody with just somebody right here in the neighborhood who happens to have a very Greek-looking name. But it is datelined Cyprus, Limassol, Cyprus. I don't know. I guess that's one of the main cities on Cyprus. My Cyprus knowledge very limited, as I mentioned yesterday. Great tree. Terrible knowledge of the island. Anyway, let's see. Agelos Petropoulos and Richard Engel, I guess our guy back here in Washington, at least for NBC News, on this story. A bank in Cyprus investigated accounts associated with President Donald Trump's former campaign manager Paul Manafort on possible money laundering. For possible money laundering, two banking sources with direct knowledge of his businesses here, that would be Cyprus, told NBC News. Manafort, whose ties to a Russian oligarch close to Vladimir Putin are under scrutiny, was associated with at least 15 bank accounts and 10 companies on Cyprus. As often happens, you and I are probably thinking right now about the time we went walking down the street and opened a limited liability company in Cyprus and opened 7 bank accounts for it. That happens from time to time, maybe without your noticing it. 15 bank accounts, 10 companies on Cyprus, dating back to 2007. The sources said at least one of those companies was used to receive millions of dollars from a billionaire Putin ally, according to court documents. Banking sources said some transactions on Manafort-associated accounts raised sufficient concern to trigger an internal investigation at a Cypriot bank into potential money laundering activities. After questions were raised, Manafort closed the accounts, the banking sources said. Offshore banking in Cyprus is not illegal, of course. I don't think anybody thinks that's the case. And the island has long been known as a hub for moving money in and out of Russia. Several U.S. lawmakers have raised questions about Manafort's business dealings in Cyprus. Why is it that islands are, we say offshoring, your bank accounts, and islands obviously are offshore. Well, first of all, I guess you can do it on Switzerland. That's not offshore. Is there anything, though, about islands that makes it a better or more natural or reasonable place to put the money? Is it just that maybe mainstream, mainland banks either in Europe or North America they just fall more easily under centralized jurisdiction, and islands tend to be either independent nations or existing somehow outside of the regulatory scheme we have at home? Is that all it is? Because that you don't have to be offshore for that either. But I'm just thinking, I see. We all know about Grand Cayman Islands and Bahamas, even Bermuda, or one of the original sort of offshore banking centers. Now Cyprus, Iceland. I'm just curious, what is it about islands that do that? And this has been the case in the Channel Islands for a long time too. I guess it's just sort of their distance from and autonomy from, if not independence from, the mainland nations where most of the commerce is going on that makes them attractive places. It's just odd. A spokesman for Manafort told NBC News in a statement that all the accounts were set up at the direction of clients in Cyprus, a common banking center for Russians and Ukrainians, for a legitimate business purpose. That's a great reason to start a company. Legitimate business purposes. Greg, are you calling back in? Greg, hi.
Hi, I called to bother you.
Oh, okay, no problem. You sound good.
I know, that's what I was testing. I fixed some things at my end, and I'm hoping that took care of the problem.
I hope so. We started off good on all the calls, but we'll just call this one fixed.
Okay, good.
I think.
So, what did I say, and what would you like to know that you couldn't hear?
Most of the end of what was going on. I was hoping it might be coming across. If the problem was on my end, I hoped everybody had heard that. But let's recap.
Nah, I think it was my end, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, let's see. If I could tell you what it was, then there wouldn't have been a problem.
Right. So at the end there, I had given you this little piece from Hotspot Shield from PC Magazine.
Okay, yes, I see that.
Talking about the different VPNs and making some recommendations in terms of what they felt were their editors' choices. And they had a list of different ones: Private Internet Access, VPN, Nord, TorGuard, and SpotFlux, in addition to the Hotspot Shield that I use. I'm not sure that all of them work on Macs. All of these should work on PCs. Again, I'm no computer whiz, but I will tell you that it's relatively easy to purchase and install. And one of the nice things, if you can find it, is the feature that allows you to turn it on and off if you have individual websites you're trying to get to that don't accept this.
Okay. Well, that is helpful. All right, I will include that in the roundup. Everyone can share their own suggestions about VPNs and the like as well.
Sure, especially if you know more about it than I do, which would be relatively easy.
That would be, okay. Not hard to do.
Right, but from the neophyte's point of view, being able to install it and use it almost immediately is really a big plus.
That's a good endorsement, really. I mean, if you're not tech savvy, but you say, hey, I unwrapped it and plugged it in and it worked, that's a pretty good endorsement for most people.
Right. So we have that. Basically, what we were talking about, if you want to look at big picture here, is we're talking about the fact that the Republicans really are kind of looking fairly inept. They still have a tremendous amount of power. Donald Trump, as president, still has a tremendous amount of power. But he's still an incompetent jerk and mostly a con man. And so the question is going to be how he uses that. And what they're trying to do is figure out how to corral an unruly group of Republicans who still don't know how to govern and balance that with the idea that maybe they can turn to Democrats to get some votes. The difficulty with that is that every day Trump and the Republican majority, especially in the House, more so in the House than the Senate, goes out of their way to alienate Democrats. And so how they could possibly work with this group of people remains way up in the air.
That's true.
Maybe you and Joan have some insights about that in terms of when it's posturing and when it's not. But it doesn't look like posturing to me right now.
It doesn't feel like it either, and it's an interesting thing to watch happen as you keep reminding us not to alienate the persuadables, watching, I guess what they might think of as persuadable Democrats be alienated day in and day out. It makes it difficult for us to do our job not alienating persuadables when there's so much piling on Democrats inside of Congress and elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I guess we just have to allow them to fail and continue to keep our heads down and do what work we can. I mean, if they are persuadable and we can swing them back, we'll take them. Doesn't mean you have to fall in love with them either, by the way. It could be totally transactional.
So I don't know if Armando's going to be happy with you that you've come around to my way of thinking, but we'll just have to leave the floor open to him so he can talk about it more.
As long as I continue to describe it as transactional, I think he'll be okay.
It is totally. Anyway, I wanted to check my connection and make sure everything was okay and give that kind of roundup for anybody who couldn't have heard me. But that's basically what's going on. So there's a lot of keeping stock or taking stock and exactly where we're at this particular point in time. The polls still suggest that the Republicans are going to blame Ryan and the poor quality of the health care bill for its defeat rather than blaming Trump. We're not even 100 days into it. It's too soon to expect them to turn on him. But some are, which is why his approval numbers are as low as they are. They're basically 40 or below. And so some of those persuadables are already starting to give up a little bit. You hear stories about them. In terms of the bulk of Republicans, keep in mind that the first thing that happens here isn't that Republicans say, I don't like Trump. It's that people who are being asked in polls stop identifying as Republicans. They start calling themselves independents. And so the Republicans that are left are still solidly behind Trump, but you have to go look and see, are there as many now as there were, let's say, in January?
Well, that is an old trick and an old problem for them. Okay. All right. Well, things seem to be holding up, by the way. I do hear every once in a while a short burst of static.
But better than it was.
Better than it was. That's true. There's no lightning going on over there, is there?
Not that I could tell. But anyway, I'll use that and just wrap up and say goodbye and thank my friend David Waldman, Kagro in the Morning, for having me on most mornings and allowing me to call back and interrupt them just so I can test my own system. Because,
we're casual that way.
We are incredibly professional and just, try to keep up appearances. Right.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Terrific.
Thanks. Say hi to Joan if you talk to her.
Will do. And, it sounds like we'll have a good shot at hearing her clearly, too.
Excellent. Take care.
Very good. Thank you, Greg. A good question here. Brian, Canadian pundit, asking. I didn't get a chance to ask him that, and I didn't want to risk any more static. But he wants to know, Greg, what is making that beeping noise sometimes in the background when you're on your end? You can send us a note about that one. I think it sounds like your neonatal heart monitor. That's the last time I heard anything that sounded anything like that. It didn't. I don't know. So I'm not really sure what's back there. I've heard various things. I wonder, sometimes I speculate at what's going on in the background. Of course, we hear when the dog or the doorbell goes off and the dog hears that. We don't hear the doorbell, but we hear the dog going crazy at the doorbell. That's expected. Sometimes it sounds like maybe, I wanted to guess, sometimes like there's maybe some laundry going on, like somebody's put something in the dryer and you hear things tumbling. I'm just making these things. These are the sound patterns that match what's in my head. I don't know. But there is an interesting beeping there. I've had questions about that before. What are you going to do? We do this thing out of the basements and kitchens and whatever's going on in our house, and there's other people that live here, and sometimes we've got to accommodate them. I'm not really sure, but hopefully there's some like really clever, fun, interesting answer to that, and we'll see. So far, no answer. So why are you trying to invade his privacy there, Brian? I don't know. Okay, where were we? We were talking about Paul Manafort and how he is laundering lots and lots of dirty, dirty money from Russia, and he's totally guilty. The end. We don't work that way in this country, but there's this article, and I'm reading it, and it sounds intriguing. We left off after wondering why it is that islands tend to draw these deposits from people in search of money laundering, but didn't get any real answer on that one. But let's see. After wondering about that, we got the reminder that offshore banking, obviously, in Cyprus is not illegal. Several U.S. lawmakers have raised questions about Manafort's business dealings, though, in Cyprus. A spokesman for Manafort told NBC News in a statement that all the accounts were set up at the direction of clients in Cyprus for a legitimate business purpose, which at this point is just a cliche for I'm a mobster, but whatever. We're not supposed to simply assume that. And I'm sure things, what are you going to say? Nobody ever says, well, I set this up for illicit business purposes. Nobody's going to tell you that. Anyway, all were legitimate entities and established for lawful ends, the statement said. But that's also part of the business of money laundering. I'm going to establish a legitimate business and move this money, which is dirty, into it. The company's clean, the money's not. Of course, eventually when we catch you, then we decide that the company's not clean either. All right. It added, the statement added that Manafort, quote, has no specific personal recollection about the account closures, can't remember, but understands that they were shut down just before 2012 government takeovers of the bank in the midst of a banking crisis. That, I think you could remember. Court documents and company registries reviewed by NBC News and interviews with banking sources indicate that Manafort's dealings in Cyprus began in 2007 when some of the accounts were opened and some companies were established. One of the companies linked to Manafort, PEM Advisors Limited, was involved in a multi-million-dollar deal with Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska, according to court documents filed in the Cayman Islands, another offshore banking center. Weird, these islands. Deripaska, described in U.S. diplomatic cables from 2006 as one of 2 to 3 oligarchs Putin turns to on a regular basis, was once denied entry to the United States because of alleged organized crime ties, current and former officials have told NBC News. He paid PEM $18.9 million to buy a television and media network in Ukraine, according to the Cayman Island court documents. But the deal fell through and the money was never accounted for, the documents say. That's the sort of thing that people end up dead for, isn't it? NBC News traced PEM and a number of other Manafort-linked companies to a law office in Nicosia, the largest city in Cyprus. I'm learning something. Managing partner Kypros Christostomides. That's probably pretty damn close, too. I don't know about Kypros, but maybe. Who also is Cyprus's former Minister of Justice. Okay, but now a managing partner at the bank here, right? Declined to answer questions without what he called his client's express consent. Okay, wait a second here. He's the managing partner of the law firm, not the bank. Sorry about that. NBC News traced PEM and a number of Manafort-linked companies to this law office where this guy is the managing partner. Banking sources said that in October of 2009, one of the 15 Manafort-associated bank accounts in Cyprus received a payment of $1 million and left the account on the same day. What does that even mean? Banking sources said that in October 2009, one of the 15 Manafort-associated bank accounts in Cyprus received a payment of $1 million and left the account. Left the account? Closed the account? Is that what they mean? Probably. Experts said the way the multiple accounts and companies were used suggests they were set up to deliberately make it difficult for auditors to track the movement of the funds, and apparently difficult for NBC News to write clearly about the movement of the funds as well. There are some red flags here, said Tom maybe Cardamom, but it's Cardamom with an E on the end. Cardamom? Cardameme. That's what we should be. Okay, well, Tom Cardamom, managing director of Global Financial Integrity, a Washington-based nonprofit. Lots of nonprofits out there monitoring millions of dollars and not taking any of them. It looks suspicious, and any bank that wanted to address money laundering would certainly have looked into the ownership of the company who owned these accounts. I guess if you got $1 million transferred to you and then you moved the money out and then closed the account right away, that would be a little suspicious. The bulk of the accounts associated with Manafort were held at the Cyprus Popular Bank. And boy, is it popular. Plus, it's in Cyprus, so truth in advertising. That's good. In 2012, under an anti-money laundering procedure called Know Your Customer, the bank asked for more information on the account's activities, according to two sources with direct knowledge of the request. These sources said that Manafort chose to close the accounts instead. We'd like to know a little bit more about you for our files. Well, go F yourself. Give me my money. I'm getting out of here. Okay, well, it's a legitimate answer, I guess. It just is suspicious. Most of the assets of the Cyprus Popular Bank were taken over by the Bank of Cyprus in 2013. In a statement, Bank of Cyprus appeared to distance itself from Manafort. Bank of Cyprus has never had an extensive relationship with Mr. Manafort or any entities connected to him, the statement said. It said that while most of Cyprus Popular Bank's assets were assumed by Bank of Cyprus in 2013, these did not include any accounts or activities relating to Mr. Manafort, either directly or indirectly. Cyprus's Attorney General, Kostas Klaridis, told NBC News that the Unit for Combating Money Laundering in Cyprus had handed information about Manafort's financial activities to U.S. Treasury investigators. How interesting. By the way, time out. Many of you probably sitting up in your chair and saying, well, how come you're not commenting on this? Well, you stop the show. Hold on a second. Bank of Cyprus is the bank that Wilbur Ross, the Secretary of Commerce, sat on the board for. Isn't that the case? Isn't the Bank of Cyprus also, who else was involved in that one? I can't even recall. But that came up the other day, right? Wilbur Ross's bank. I don't remember exactly. Did he buy it out? Was he sitting on the board? I can't remember what his relationship was with it. How come that's not mentioned here? I was just reading on to see whether they made any mention of it. They don't. And I guess since they can't make any connection other than the fact that Ross was on the board, they left it alone, or maybe they just didn't know. And I don't know what it means. It might not mean anything. But it's weird. I mean, maybe it's not. If you're moving in these circles where people are parking money offshore, and I guess they all have to be on islands, and there's not that many islands. I mean, there's lots of islands out there. Not that many that have banks that millionaires, billionaires, oligarchs, etc. are willing to trust for some reason. So I think you have a rather small pool of island banks to go to. Cyprus, Iceland. I mean, there's only ones that have shown up in the news. I only know about them because people keep getting caught there. So I suppose there could be plenty on other islands elsewhere that people aren't getting caught on, and you'd be smart to move your money there, I suppose. But, could it be anything more than, well, I'm Paul Manafort and I'm looking to cheat and launder money with Ukrainians and Russians, and so they like to use Cyprus, so I'll use Cyprus because I just want the easiest access I can get to some of that delicious money. Okay. Meanwhile, on the other side of the equation, somewhere else in the world, Wilbur Ross saying, I also would like to get more of this delicious money, but I'm not being paid by any Russian oligarchs, and I don't see that in my future at any point. I just don't do any business there. But I do know this. Lots of my billionaire friends are laundering money offshore from Russian oligarchs in Cyprus. A great business idea if it's not getting paid directly by desperate oligarchs happy to give you a cut of the money that they're laundering. in exchange for doing some kind of partnership or trade deal with them. Well, maybe the best thing to do is own a bank in Cyprus and take my cut that way. I don't know. Would that count as a relationship between the two? I guess not. I mean, especially if Manafort was doing everything he could to remain unknown to the management of the bank. So I guess you could maybe kind of wriggle out of it that way. But it is awfully strange that two people that closely connected to Trump would end up entangled in the same bank on the same island, I guess, except, minus the fact that, if you're chasing Russian millions around the world, I guess at some point you're going to land in Cyprus. The only question is, what are you doing chasing Russian oligarch millions around the world? And I guess the answer to that is, for Democrats, is, yeah, what are you doing? That's weird and unusual and just an invitation to trouble. The answer for Republicans is, did you hear the part where they said they were giving away millions? Because that's what I'm doing here. Okay. Let's see. Mimi Joe weighs in with a comment here that says, Engel reported live from Cyprus on Maddow last night. The $1 million went into the account and out of the account on the same day per the report. Okay, so that does sound like what I was trying to glean from this one. This one was just stated oddly. But okay, thank you for letting us know about that one. And at least that we got the read on it correct. Let's see. What else have we got here? There's more in this article. Several U.S. senators have raised questions about Manafort's financial relationship with Deripaska and his business links to Cyprus. Last week, the Associated Press reported Manafort was on a $10 million a year consulting contract with Deripaska. Got to get one of these. And promised him in 2005, a 2005 memo to influence politics and news coverage to greatly benefit the Putin government. I mentioned that was the case yesterday, and I included a link for Scott to put in the roundup post, and it's there. That is a little clearer on that one, the original AP report about that one. That seems like such an odd contract to make with somebody. Here's $10 million. I want you to benefit the Putin government. Why? Well, they'll just do anything for money, I guess. Mr. Manafort cannot confirm the authenticity of the memo cited by AP. This statement from Manafort's representative said, his representatives believe, and we are his representatives, so we know it's true. His representatives believe that Mr. Manafort complied with any applicable reporting laws, and note that his relationship with Mr. Deripaska was described contemporaneously in press accounts. In a paid advertisement in the Wall Street Journal on Tuesday, Deripaska disputed the AP report and threatened legal action. They love that stuff. I want to resolutely deny this malicious assertion and lie, the ad said. I have never made any commitments or contracts with the obligation or purpose to covertly promote or advance Putin's government interests anywhere in the world. Manafort has repeatedly denied he ever worked for the Russian government. He has agreed to appear before the House Intelligence Committee, which is running an inquiry, sort of, into whether there were ties between Russia and Trump campaign officials and Russia's effort to influence the 2016 election. So, okay, that's the end of that one. Just thought we'd bring you up to date on what's up with Manafort. No huge surprises there, but moving the ball forward a little bit on that one. Let's see. I said earlier I was speculating on the possible interest of Cambridge Analytica in this weird new anti-privacy bill. That is the bill that would allow internet service providers to sell personalized information to its customers. Oh, there's a couple of comments coming in before I get to this one. But I got a comment along the way from Textfire on Twitter, who said, yeah, I kind of believe that might be the case too. And in fact, Textfire has written an article posted here in medium.com that I think addresses some of that. Before we get to it, or if we get to it, I wanted to round up. Let's see, there's a couple other comments here. Culture of Truth, Bobblespeak, with this comment. Wilbur Ross owns the Bank of Cyprus with Dmitry Rivoleviev, who also overpaid Trump for the Palm Beach mansion by $60 million. That would be the $95 million / $100 million teardown next door. Yes, I remember that one. And he's the guy, and he's in the fertilizer business, and he's the one who Louise Mensch says keeps landing his plane at the same airport where Trump travels to. Okay. I mean, again, it's sort of like, it's out there as a point. I don't really have the connective tissue there, but it is obviously pretty strange. So he just outright owns the Bank of Cyprus? Wilbur Ross does, or has a partnership that owns it, or what? Let's see. Arliss Bunny here, with Will and Arliss's account, unless it's Will, tweeting under the I am hopping mad tag handle on Twitter, says it isn't just island nations. Panama, true, right? I forgot about the Panama Papers. Panama and several U.S. states competing now. Hopping Mad covered it when the Panama Papers broke. So an excellent way to get a primer on how that stuff works and why it works. Okay, so it never made any sense that it would be only islands. It's actually ahistorical that it would be islands. If you go way back to my privateers of the Caribbean idea, I don't know why anybody would stash vast sums of actual specie on a island location anywhere. But of course, all this money is electronic and can be transferred in and out in an instant, so it doesn't matter that it's on an island. I guess it's just they're just looking for an out-of-country jurisdiction and something that's maybe like a contiguous land neighbor might be, I don't know, somehow more awkward, more difficult. I'm not really sure. I guess you could just do it in Canada if Canada had such loose banking laws. Panama, though. Yeah, I mean, that's key. That's absolutely true. So maybe we can figure out which date that was that you covered that on Hopping Mad, and we can advertise that to everybody. You can go get a quick primer on why that stuff happens. Culture of Truth also commenting here. Wilbur Ross also co-owns the Bank of Cyprus with Putin friend, oh boy, more Russians, Viktor Vekselberg and Vladimir Strelkovsky, I'm going to guess. This is STRZH, this one begins. You tell me what's going on. Strelkovsky, I'm going to guess. STRZHALKOFSKY, a former KGB agent. And one of the reasons he was a former KGB agent is it was so difficult to pronounce his name, he was literally untraceable. That's one of the tricks those Russians use. All right, so let's see. I'm expecting to hear from Joan shortly, but let's see if we can squeeze in this post on Medium from TextFire. SCL Group joins the U.S. State Department. This is kind of an interesting twist. Robert Mercer funded Cambridge Analytica's foreign parent company, that's SCL, signs a deal to do propaganda work for state's Global Engagement Center. Well, I guess that's to be expected now that Donald Trump actually has assumed the presidency and he can install his own cabinet secretaries. What do you know? Rex Tillerson decides that the State Department needs a probably very expensive contract with Cambridge Analytica, owned by one of the biggest of the Trump financial backers, Robert Mercer, and operated at least in part, or at least used to be operated at least in part, by Steve Bannon, his chief advisor. SCL Group, the shadowy psychological marketing data conglomerate involved in both the Donald Trump and Brexit victories, has recently been awarded a defense contract with the U.S. State Department's newest propaganda unit, aided by the recent lobbying and advisement of the disgraced former National Security Advisor and now registered foreign lobbyist, Michael Flynn. What a deal. Reams of information abound across the internet if you require a primer on the involvement of SCL Group subsidiary Cambridge Analytica as a part of Steve Bannon, Donald Trump's presidential campaign powerhouse data team, alongside Brad Parscale, Gary Kobe, and the RNC Tech Squad, and Brexit's Leave media operations teams. In a nutshell, things like your credit report, voting record, and address, purchasing habits, harvested internet interactions, and stolen social media histories are compiled into highly personalized, actionable, demographic, and psychometric profiles detailing how your specific brain works, assuming it's your brain that's driving your thinking, which becomes very useful to advertisers or electioneers should they desire to guide your opinion or intent. This behavioral micro-targeting has been becoming relatively standard for advertisers, as it is a direct extension of the essential underpinning of all marketing theory, but the viciously cynical hyper-exploitation of this data via existing advertising and media dissemination infrastructure is exactly how Trump and Brexit scraped out victories. I'm going to leave it there for the moment so that we can pick up with Joan McCarter, but maybe we can return to this at some later point. I wanted to give you a taste of what people were thinking out there, in addition to what I was making up as I went along, because why not get some corroborating thought out there? Speaking of which, Joan McCarter, hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, too. Have you come to corroborate any of my thoughts, by any chance? I hope so. I don't know what they were.
Well, I missed the last
you were
little
taking
bit.
notes.
Were you talking about yesterday's vote again? And
I wasn't, but I mentioned it earlier in the show, but we didn't get too much into it. I didn't actually track that vote. I just assumed, oh, this is horrible, and it will definitely pass. Mm-hmm. And it did, didn't it?
If we'd had another week,
yeah,
we could have beat it. 20,000 phone calls went into the House in the 48 hours before the vote.
And they know who you all are, too.
Yeah, and they know who you all are. And we did get 15 Republicans voting against, a mix of Freedom Caucus and moderate Republicans who thought, hey, maybe this isn't such a good idea.
It seems kind of weird. I heard the comments were running against it over at Breitbart.
Yeah.
And that's probably to be expected, too. You know what, though? It's, I'll expand on it later, I guess. But, I think you're right. With another week, they probably could have turned this around, and maybe that's why Olivier Knox was musing this morning. Wouldn't it be amazing if Donald Trump vetoed this thing?
It would be. He won't.
Yeah.
But it would be.
I think he's right. It would be. You're right, too. I would be amazed.
It's really frustrating. You know, the Senate jammed it through while we were all very much distracted fighting Trump care in the House.
Yeah, it's a good plan for them.
It worked, but they also had a time frame because they used the Congressional Review Act. Yeah, they had to do it relatively quickly.
I never did study that enough, but don't we have, what is it, like it's a 60-day thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, because aren't we on like day 65 already of...
Well, working days, I guess.
Yeah, I'll have to see where the definition is on that one. That would be interesting. I'd love to know. Well, I got to study it more. I just never made myself familiar with it. They really didn't use it very much until this year, really.
Until this year, yeah. So it's not been legally challenged, and I suppose there's an outside chance that somebody will pop up and say, no, you can't really do this, and challenge it in courts.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I don't know if you get the House and the Senate to say, well, we want this to be the state of the law, and the president signs it. I don't know what the big issue is, unless unless you're rolling back regulatory. Well, I don't see why you can't roll back regulation with statute either.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'll leave that to the legal teams working on that one. You never know what might be buried somewhere. It's always a good nugget someplace.
There is. What's particularly pernicious about the Congressional Review Act is that it states the regulatory agency can't promulgate another substantially similar rule.
Yeah.
So, until this is either challenged and overturned, which I don't see happening, the only thing that's really going to fix it is getting back Congress and doing it statutorily.
Yeah. Or I suppose, I guess, that might be the point. It may be that you could challenge the right of the Congress to restrict the executive branch's discretion in promulgating new regulations. I understand why they did it, and it makes a certain amount of sense. If you believe that the regulation was a mistake to begin with, obviously it wouldn't do to go through the trouble of passing a rollback only to have the agency just say, all right, well, we'll just change A to the and reissue the same thing. But yeah, I don't know how easy it would be to win in court if a regulatory agency did it anyway. It's just that these regulatory agencies under Trump won't do it anyway.
Right.
So
Right.
we probably won't see that tested until either control of Congress changes or perhaps control of the executive branch changes and a new regulatory agency says, to hell with that, we'll just change it and do it substantially similar anyway and go to court.
Yeah. I think there are other ways that it can probably be done. And I hope it is, because this is pretty radical stuff.
Yeah.
But I've got to say that Democrats were great on this one. We didn't lose a single Democrat in either the House or the Senate.
That's good. And,
because it was a CRA, it was not subject to the 60 vote threshold.
Right.
It was just a simple majority vote, so they got us there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the window closes on this thing at some point soon. Like I said, the 60 days has come and gone, but it may be that they count their days differently. Once we do run into that wall, what are they going to do in Congress? They got nothing. I guess they have to work on trying to put together some spending bills to try and keep the government open, and they've got a month to do that.
Hey, how about
Thanks
that?
for mentioning that. Yeah, you were
Speaking
way
of
ahead
which,
of
Paul
everything on
Ryan
that.
says no way we're defunding Planned Parenthood in the continuing resolution or whatever it is we come up with by the end of April.
Okay. So
Which tells you there's going to be another government shutdown threat
right.
from the maniacs.
That's minus 35 votes right there.
Yep.
Okay. All right, well, good.
Sometimes I wonder if Ryan isn't actively trying to have a coup. To be ousted as speaker.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, it'll work better than ousting the other two guys and ending up president, anyway.
Yes.
So, yeah, interesting. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether he's enjoying the job or not, but it doesn't look like it. I don't see what could be so enjoyable about all of this. But
it's hard to see. Last week was massive. That was huge.
Yes, that was
Boehner's
pretty big news.
fall was really big. Ryan's failure here, I think, was bigger than Boehner's fall.
I guess so.
Because for 7 years, this has been their reason for being.
That's true. In that respect, it's certainly very revealing, and everybody got a good look at the fact that these guys, I mean, I don't know how you don't already know that they don't have a plan, but if for some reason you were holding out, I think it's over now.
I think so, yeah.
Although,
and nobody's buying that there's going to be the Republican plan. Even though Trump says, we'll take care of it. We'll make this deal and we'll do it very quickly. Yes. Did you see this story from last night?
I didn't see Trump weighing in on it, but I did see the other day that there were a couple of Republicans out there, and even Bannon, I guess, was back to it and saying, we might just bring this vote back onto the agenda sometime soon with a new plan underlying it. But I hadn't heard yet that Trump was on board, but I figured they would tell him this morning, you're on board.
There's the very crazy story in Politico overnight from a reception at the White House for the Senate.
Okay.
I'm going to send you the link to the story I just wrote on it.
All right, thanks.
He was ebullient. He was happy. He was having a great time, Trump was.
Well,
he was very pleased that a lot of people showed up to his party.
He's very basic.
People we weren't expecting.
I see the photo. Man.
I know that we're all going to make a deal on healthcare. That's such an easy one.
Okay.
Just a short-term memory, apparently.
I guess.
I got the best that I could out of the Politico story because the stuff he was saying was just nuts.
Disconnected from reality, certainly. This is
disconnected from reality. Nobody ever told me that politics was going to be so much fun.
Really?
He told the crowd.
Well, that's not good for you. Cheering yourself up. That's nice. Someone gave him a Snickers.
That must have been it.
That's it was low blood sugar the last 2 years or so, and now he's happy being president. That's good. Okay. I see he's here with in the photo with, I guess that's Mitch McConnell with the back to the camera.
That's Mitch McConnell's bald spot. Yes.
Okay. Well, they've all got him. Chuck Schumer. Boy, do they all look old in this photo. This is not individually,
it is not
I
a
think they all
flattering
look okay.
photo of any.
But holy
But
mackerel.
a rather bizarre hair picture for our leader.
Yeah, for everybody here, really. I'll never figure out or really, I don't think, even want to know what he plasters the side of his hair with. Trump, I don't know what that, liquid substance, I don't know, is, and he slicks the hair back over his ears with. That's a very, 1950s
no bobby pin in this one.
Going on. No, that's true. He's doing better with that. He learned his lesson there, maybe.
And I think we were between dye jobs when they took this picture.
Yeah. It's a little light.
This was January. This was the first week.
Oh, I see. That wasn't yesterday's picture?
No, they didn't have any pictures of yesterday.
Oh, okay. So they could have gotten younger in between January and now. It's possible.
Can you imagine how much he's going to age if he actually manages to make it through 4 whole years?
No, but
Much
I've been
less
trying.
8.
Yeah. I've given it some thought before. Right before, I don't know if it was before the election, probably after the election once he had won. I remember at some point tweeting out before and after photos of Obama, of W, and then the current picture of Trump, and just wondering, oh my God, how is he going to survive this? I don't think he can. But people were pointing out, well, if he endures the stress of doing the job, he's dead. But of course, he could also just run around and go golfing, and maybe he'll survive. And it's hard to tell which path he's following at this point.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Very hard.
He's certainly away quite a bit, obviously, at the golf courses. And now he comes to my neighborhood to golf, which is very upsetting.
Is it your neighborhood?
It is.
Were you impacted by the Secret Service?
I wasn't. They're either not doing a great deal, which is possible because people keep taking Instagram pictures of him golfing. So they're not doing a great job shielding. The press is stuck in the basement with garbage bags over the window. Instagrammers are getting the photos of him on the golf course, and really they're just club members who wander in and out of the grill room or are on the course playing at the same time. So it's also just it's a little bit isolated from the rest of. From my part of town, anyway. But so I don't know what they're doing to keep things secure there. But they don't.
I don't think they are. They're not keeping any visitors logs to Mar-a-Lago.
Oh,
or
right.
presumably to this place,
even though it's a White House.
Even though it's the Southern White House.
Right. Yeah, this place, I'm sure they're not keeping any logs, although Instagram has got the information if you need it.
Just keep your eye on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
Right.
You can keep track of what the president's doing on weekends.
Pretty much. I don't know what the idea of the Sunday visit for half an hour to watch the Golf Channel in the grill room. I know he said he was doing meetings, but that one just makes no sense whatsoever. Not only was that not enough time to do 3 meetings, but none of the meetings could possibly have been worth it if they were only 11 minutes long. Plus, you were photographed watching TV, and really, what would I won't even get up to find the remote if I don't know where it is, much less drive a half an hour to watch TV. I have big questions about what he was doing.
We may never know unless we have a complete diary on Instagram.
Well, it's up to you to crowdsource the National Archives.
I think that perhaps you need to join his club.
That might be impossible now. It would have been possible before. That's something I was warning people about, making the assumption that members of Trump National golf course in Virginia are anything like the Mar-a-Lago members. This was just sort of a neighborhood course before that. You used to be able to join it for as private golf clubs go, relatively little in terms of initiation fees. If you bought a house from the developers who built the golf course, I think for like $5,000, you could be a member. And then he came along and bought the thing. And so a lot of people are just grandfathered members now at a golf club owned by the national grandpa. But they have little or nothing to do with the fact that it's a Trump place. And I guess probably some people maybe resigned when he became a politician. They probably didn't want to have anything to do with him. But I imagine there are also people, I'm sure lobbyists will begin to buy in, and I'm sure now he's raised the price, and it's a very pricey place to be, and he's probably operating a lot more like Mar-a-Lago in terms of joining now.
Maybe we can do a GoFundMe.
Maybe.
Because, it'd be very useful to have you as a mole.
That's true.
In the club.
I could, there's some graft I could get along with.
Yeah.
So Daily Kos will raise lots of money online to buy me a membership at my local golf club.
So you can report on the president.
I'll go play, and if he happens to be there on a Saturday, I'll take an Instagram photo, and we'll be famous.
I think chances of him being there on a Saturday are pretty darn good.
That's pretty good. I think chances of having a golf club membership purchased for me by Daily Kos are pretty bad. But who knows?
Oh, well, it's a thought.
Yeah, it's a lovely thought. It's right up there with those cruises that publications sometimes do, and the whole staff goes on a cruise and everybody asks them questions. Have you ever seen those? I think The Nation does those.
The Nation does them. Some crazy group does them. We keep threatening to send Hunter on one.
Oh, yes, right. There's a crazy Republican group. See, now if you can send Hunter, if you ever get to it, he goes first. If he gets to go on a cruise, I'll take the golf membership. I believe Jake also plays golf, by the way. So he might need one too.
Jake would be good for the golf, yes.
He'd be
Hunter, I don't believe golfs. He's got a bad back.
And he's in California.
Oh, lucky man.
Yeah, that's true. If they ever separate, at the behest of the Russians, too. Watch out for that one.
Good question, Culture of Truth.
What's that? Oh, yes, look, here we were. Mark Cuban. Why doesn't Mark Cuban buy Michael Moore a membership at Mar-a-Lago?
Good idea.
Why doesn't Michael Moore buy it? I mean, he can.
Yeah, I think Michael Moore could probably afford it.
Probably. But it's funnier if Mark Cuban buys it. So that's true. I was wondering about, is there anybody he wouldn't accept as a Mar-a-Lago member? I imagine he has veto power.
One would assume.
And he has not so far rejected, I think, at least one Mexican drug lord, as I understand it, has managed his way in there, but not since.
Are you saying that Mar-a-Lago is another place where they're laundering money?
I heard you say that, or ask that. Anyway, many people are asking that question, though. I don't know if that's the primary business of Mar-a-Lago, but I think he just likes rich people and doesn't ask very many questions about who's paying the money. I assume that he'd figure out that Michael Moore was there and that they would, throw him out and you'd have good film. I'm a member. I'm paid up. Well, you'll get a refund. They'll kick him out. But it would make for a good short film. Very short.
Yes, it would.
But yeah, I wondered whether there's anybody can you just, as a spy, if you put that down as your occupation, for instance, in your application, spy, would they take you? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. We should try. We should try every avenue possible.
Absolutely. Although a lot of that means money going into his pocket, but.
Well, that is kind of a problem.
All right. Well, if we ever figure it out, let me know, and I'll be happy to arrange to play some golf about the same time as him.
Good deal.
All right.
Our man on the street, as it were.
Yeah.
Man on the links.
Right. on the cart path. All right.
Well, what else is going on in the
good
world?
question.
I have
Let's
not
see.
been keeping up with Manafort and Russia and Cyprus, and so I
trying.
can't really help you out a whole lot there.
All right.
I have been keeping up on Gorsuch and on, of course, Trump Care.
Yeah, all right. Let's find out a little more about that.
Let's dispense with Trump Care first. No, it's not coming back.
Okay, that's good news. It was a little worrying to hear.
Even when Paul Ryan says, well, okay, yeah, we're going to keep working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've got one former member of House Republican leadership, Peter Roxham, who's saying, no way. He is, Politico says, leading a charge to bury Speaker Paul Ryan's Obamacare replacement once and for all.
Okay, that's good.
Yes. He's on the Ways and Means Committee, so he's got some power to do this.
Okay. That would be helpful.
So this iteration of it probably is going to be buried. And frankly, of course it is. Everybody hated it.
Yeah. I mean, it's in trouble. And I could see them trying to keep the issue alive, but I'm trying to think at the same time, is there a reason? Will they have to bring a reconciliation bill at some point for any other reason? Or can they hold that in their pocket? And I guess you could bring more than one.
They could bring more than one. And I think that Ryan has still made noises about doing that for Planned Parenthood defunding.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just not in the continuing resolution.
And, possibly even the Medicaid changes. I haven't explored that one enough, but I've seen it raised as a possibility.
Okay.
He still really, really, really wants those Medicaid cuts. Because those Medicaid cuts will help him on the other end when he's doing tax reform, as he likes to call it.
Yeah.
Get the $880 billion in Medicaid cuts he was trying to get in Trump Care, and that gives him, a lot more wiggle room.
Sure.
So, whether it's real, I don't know, but I don't think that he's going to give up on it easily.
Okay.
The Medicaid portion.
Yeah. Well, giant pot of money. It's hard to see somebody who wants to, if he cares to pay for tax cuts, give up on that. Although I did see at some point someone from the Freedom Caucus at some point saying, yeah, we don't really care so much whether or not tax cuts are fully paid for.
Right. They've given up on that one.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's expected. It's hypocritical, but the kind of hypocrisy we expect. I guess like I saw on a completely different subject, but still congressional and hypocrisy, so we're in the same area. Lamar Alexander tweeting last night about how to filibuster the Gorsuch nomination would be to break with 230 years of Senate tradition, and not having a vote on a presidential nominee for the Supreme Court. Unbelievable. And
these people, they have very, very short memories.
They do. I assume he meant...
Yeah, Senate D Floor Watch tweeted out after he said that Alexander voted against cloture on President Obama's nominees 121 times.
Huh. Well, he just had a lot of questions and wanted to extend debate. That's totally different.
121 times.
That is a lot. And here he had been a Gang of 14 guy, and the deal was, you don't vote against cloture on a nominee except under extraordinary circumstances. But that was only for the 100 and whatever it was, 9th Congress. So
that was when we had a white president.
No wonder.
Yeah.
That must have been it. All right. Well, so yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm sure he meant, well, we didn't filibuster, we just didn't hold a vote. You see, so you can't filibuster something that there's no vote on, but that's creative.
Yeah.
But
I think we're up to 27
yes,
Democrats. I need to do my full count.
Oh.
Who will filibuster?
Okay.
Yeah, I think the question is there are probably 3 willing to vote for cloture. I don't see there being 8.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I think we've got, let's see, Leahy from the latest, and I hope we can get him to change his mind. Manchin, and I'm not sure who the other would be, but we're doing pretty well lining up for a filibuster. And for his part, McConnell thinks it's coming. So he's trying to convince his team that it's okay to go nuclear.
Okay. And,
according to Politico, he told his leadership group, feel no guilt about going nuclear.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't. Go ahead.
No, they shouldn't. They should just do it and and face the consequences, which I think would be probably worse with the voting public than had Reid finally just had enough and done it.
Yeah, I guess so. It's entirely possible that since there was so much focus on it and so much discussion about it, and what it would mean or what it did mean at the time for Republicans to hold this seat open, knowing that if they did win, they were actually giving the nomination to this crazy man. This crazy man
who has a 37% approval rating right now, and it's only going down.
Right. And we're only investigating him for,
treason.
Yeah. Small stuff.
So, I think that there might be 2 or 3 Republican senators who will think twice about whether they're going to go down this wormhole with their leader.
It's going to be interesting, and I think I saw Bob Corker this morning being retweeted discussing it, saying he wasn't quite sure that this was such a great idea. I think my stepbrother Mark sent me asking for a clarification on what did he mean when he said, and it was Corker saying nuclear option seems like a bad way to go because, well, he gave a variant of what turned out to be the old turn the Senate into the House thing.
Yeah.
And,
which is precisely what the maniacs in the House want to see happen.
Yes, they understand how the House, well, sort of. Understand.
Sort of. I mean, they don't really get they don't care how it all works.
Yeah.
But they do see that Senate rules are in their way.
Yes.
This has been the mode of operation for the Freedom Caucus all along. They just assume by force of their will they can get the Senate to change its rules and be just like the House.
Yes. And they can. It's just, it really has to be by the force of the senators' will. And if they don't will it, you have
and they're not really very keen to be looked at like the House is looked at.
Yeah. Well, it's terrible.
So anyway, McConnell's going to have this fight.
Good.
We're almost certainly going to filibuster Gorsuch, and McConnell is almost certainly going to have to decide whether he goes nuclear and try to convince. Corker's made noise, Lindsey Graham's made noise, John McCain's made noise. You don't know if Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski are going to be so keen on it either. The problem is all of these people are very wobbly.
Yeah. I mean, almost means it's just nuts to even tell me McCain's making noise.
Right.
Okay, so what?
Right.
But, he's got a record in this area, and so does Lindsey Graham, and I don't know whether they remember it and want to stand by it or not. We'll see. It certainly could happen. I wish Leahy would kind of change his mind. But again, there are certain numbers.
I know. We fought so hard to bring him around.
Yeah. And I don't know. He forgets that he did this the first time.
He's not living in this Senate.
No.
He's living in the Senate that he joined however many years ago.
Yeah. He's just such a fixture in Vermont. People in Vermont aren't going to think badly of him if he joins with the Democrats in this.
No.
And
Of
they
course
could certainly
not.
say,
Not with this president
right.
and not with this nominee. Gorsuch is an extremist.
Yeah. I don't know what troubles him about it, except that he has this tradition of not, even his tradition of opposing the nuclear option isn't a particularly strong tradition. He has a strong tradition of saying he opposes it and then doing it.
Yeah.
So, whatever. I mean that from the beginning of his service in the 70s until just until 2013, he says no, yes, every time.
Yeah. So just say yes.
I guess so. And although maybe he just enjoys doing it that way, and that's the way he'll handle it. No, yes. And that would be okay too. If that's what he thinks Vermont wants to hear, and he comes to yes, that's fine. It troubles me a little bit that. How long does this have to go on? He's insulted to his face as chairman of the Judiciary Committee and as a Democrat for forever. They're constantly doing this to him, and it was just a huge insult to the Senate how the Garland nomination was handled, and it almost doesn't matter whether Gorsuch is or isn't an extremist at this point. You just say, this was a huge insult to a Senate that operates on normally a very different basis. Why don't we want to turn the Senate into the House? Well, there's a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is that, we're just either not that kind of people, or we empower our senators to foul up too much if you stamp on them, if you tread on them, to borrow a phrase from the Gadsden flag. And you did that to 50% of us. I saw something the other day about a clip in the maybe an opinion piece in the paper saying, oh right, it was Lindsey Graham's comment that the left is going crazy on this, and we really have to put a stop to this nonsense that they can block Gorsuch or anybody else. And it's like it's not the left here they are also upset, but you crapped on 50% of your colleagues. What do you think they're going to do about that? If they don't do anything about it, then what's the point? Then there's nothing to be afraid of. Then yes, go nuclear. Everybody goes nuclear every week from now on.
It could happen.
Yeah, and it very well may. And then
I think it probably will. Which is awful because Gorsuch really is terrible and he's young.
Yes. That will be, it'll be problematic, but we've seen that coming for 30 years.
Yeah, we have.
That's what you do these days: is you put a young person on the court and try and keep doing that. Unless, of course, you come out with a compromise justice who's middle of the road and a little more than middle aged, so that nobody has that concern. But that didn't seem to work either.
No, that didn't work either, did it?
No. Okay. Well, as far as that goes, we'll just how quickly do you think that they would make that decision?
Well, McConnell is swearing there will be a vote on April 7th.
Okay.
I think he might be being a tad optimistic. But, he might be able to negotiate this with his Senate in time to do it. He might be able to get enough on board to go nuclear.
Okay.
Right then. We'll see.
We'll see.
It's
see
possible.
A report here. Heinrich is the latest to say no on Gorsuch and no on cloture.
I believe that takes us up to 29.
Okay. Getting there. They have what they need, but still, it would be nice if everybody came out and said it.
If they could just leave Manchin standing alone.
That would be helpful. With as little company as possible. And that's something to think about, too, Senator Leahy, is I don't know if you really want to be Manchin's cover on this.
Yeah.
I mean, that probably
and
doesn't
it's not
upset
a
him, but-
hard argument to make to your constituency when you only have to point to the trucker story. You only have to say, this man was fine with an employer dismissing a guy who was just trying to save his own life.
Yeah, well, I don't think we actually covered the story much, but I'm sure everybody has heard it by now. It was particularly heartless stuff.
It was extremely heartless. I can't remember the guy's name, which is bad. Starts with an M. He's with a trucking company.
Yeah.
He breaks down. It's freezing, horrible storm. The wheels, I believe, on his on the trailer freeze up.
Not good.
Not good. His only option is to unhook and drive to safety, or do something illegal, which is drag the broken trailer
Yeah.
to safety. So he calls his employer. They say, stay there. Stay with the truck. We will send somebody out. Hours later, nobody's showed up. He calls again, stay with the truck. He decides not to because he is losing feeling in his extremities and he's having a hard time staying awake and he's getting hypothermic and he wants to save his life.
Yes. All good reasons.
So he's fired by his employers for abandoning his load. And Gorsuch, luckily, was in the minority on this decision. Gorsuch said, absolutely, he can be fired for trying to save his life.
Well, there you have it. You signed it away to the company, and you should be willing to die for your payload. Alphonse Madden.
Alphonse Madden.
The name
yes.
of the trucker.
Thanks.
Just so I looked it up. I didn't know offhand either, but I figured I'd use that opportunity to make sure we got his name there on the record. Yeah, that was pretty sick, to say the least. Glad he was.
Jeffrey
in the minority.
Toobin called it gothic cruelty.
Yeah,
and it is.
I mean,
that's Dickensian.
Yeah. It's very weird. I mean, in a law school classroom kind of way, I could see where you say, all right, well, I need can somebody make the argument that this has to be the way it is? He's got the option. It's not illegal for him to leave to save his life. We're not going to arrest him for it, but the employer can just say, hey, congratulations on saving your life. Now work for somebody else or what? And you say, and in a classroom debate, that's one thing. But then when it gets to real life and death, and you're a real judge, and you refuse to look at the equities, as law school students would say, well, it's a good question about your judicial temperament, because the Supreme Court handles some unique cases, and it's the court of last resort. And even on a circuit court, you can say, well, look, my preference is literally the cold reality of the law. It's black and white to me, and that doesn't preclude some sort of private lawsuit against the company if the worker were to die, but the company gets to do this and individuals get to do that, and that's the way I see the law. But even on a circuit court, you can still say, and if I'm wrong about that and the majority of the country really prefers that we look at the equities, then there's the Supreme Court can decide to overturn that. When you're the court of last resort and you just flatly refuse to consider the human costs of what you're doing, that doesn't, by itself, depending on the case, might not in some eyes disqualify you, but it makes me at least say, yeah, all right, so I'm glad there are some other humanists on the court who can look at this stuff and say, this is just ridiculous. We're going to be the laughing stock of the world if we really decide our cases this way. So how many of Gorsuch's type can you afford on a court from which there's no appeal?
Yeah.
I guess, if you want to put the best possible light on it, I would still say, okay, well, I think there's enough fundamentalist weirdos on the court as it is. So
I think that there are.
that will be plenty. That view is represented. I don't need any more people who really think that there's no such thing as a life or death decision.
I think that, politically, it's an easy case for any Democrat to make for opposing him.
Yeah.
It doesn't get into complicated legalities. Yeah. It doesn't get into court speak at all. It's life and death.
Right. Maybe we've been playing it wrong. It just occurred to me that if you're on the wrong side of a country music song, basically, this could be a country music ballad. If the guy had died, and no one would be for that then.
No.
So, but he lived, so it's a question mark. That's really what we're at here.
I guess so. At any rate, it's an easy one to oppose.
All right,
and I think, I would love to get Leahy to change his mind. He might. Maybe. He's done it before.
Yeah, maybe he's just not sympathetic with the freezing cold part. That's not even cold. I'm from Vermont.
I'm from Vermont.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't know. Where was the truck? It might have been in North Dakota, where they have pretty good cold, too. I don't know. That's interesting. I don't think I know that much about the case. I'll look that up.
You look that up.
Okay. You tell me something interesting. I'll find something not so interesting. We've got the Russia investigation. We've got Garland. There are more than enough reasons for any Democrat to be able to do this. So. Okay. Let's see. So what else might be on the horizon? I keep getting caught by surprise by their Congressional Review Act bills. I haven't been.
I don't know how many more they have they can do. They've really jammed through a lot. Many on environmental things. I should look and see what other possibilities that we've got out there. It's very hard to plan and implement a plan under the Trump administration for research, for how your days are going to go, for what you're going to be writing on. It's an extremely reactive process we're in right now.
Yeah. Well, not much happening up on the Hill minus whatever the issue of the day is. So I don't know. I can't see what's coming over the hill, and I don't think they want to hint at what it is. But I would guess
because they don't want you to have a lot of time to be able to rally against it, which is what happened with yesterday.
That may be it
with internet privacy, which we need to talk about some, and I need to write about some when I have time. The things that you can do to protect yourself, using Tor for your browser, for instance. And you can do that now with Daily Kos. We've got it worked out. It breaks a lot of sites, which is inconvenient.
Yes, Greg was saying that it doesn't always work out very well.
Yeah.
So Daily Kos has taken the time to tweak things so that it works.
Yes.
That's great. Okay.
And using DuckDuckGo instead of Google for a search engine.
Okay.
Using Privacy Badger from EFF, from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which is a good place to bookmark for just keeping up on the issue and finding those tools that you can use to protect yourself. Certainly you can use a virtual private network for when you're streaming.
Yeah.
And there are free ones. Hopefully I'll have time that I can work on this some more and write about it at Daily Kos and give folks tools.
All right. Yeah, I think that would be a great thing to do. And it'd be nice if it's
here are the four things to start with, I guess I would say. If you can use Tor for your browser. Mm-hmm. Use Signal for messaging on your phone.
Yeah. Okay.
Use DuckDuckGo for your search engine. And use Privacy Badger from EFF.
All right. And all those people should send us big sponsorship checks or something like that. or maybe
Well,
pizza.
yeah,
or
no, because
golf
they're all
membership?
pretty much nonprofit. So,
Dang. Well, that's okay. I'm not making any profits either, so it's fine. You can go ahead and send
but
it
they
to
would
me,
appreciate your donations.
Yeah. Oh, I have to pay them now. This is
Yeah.
This,
And EFF is actually very much worthwhile.
it's great working for progressives.
Yeah.
You're constantly paying them to work for them. It's terrific. But okay, but that's all well worth it. And I mean, I've been slow to move to those things. So yeah, I think if a trusted source like our community at Daily Coast, particularly with input from the community, among whom I guarantee there's somebody who knows 100 times more about this stuff, listening to this show right now, probably.
Absolutely.
Who would be most welcome to have your information for the wider audience at Daily Coast as well as here on Daily Coast Radio. Just tell us what we should be doing. And it's okay if it's your product, too. You might as well tell us about it. You've probably made something great, too, and we'll all make our own shopping decisions and all that. You don't have to twist any arms. And you don't have to feel like you are just because you're plugging your own stuff. We need to know how to deal in this new world.
And you can be the next Charles Gaba.
Yes.
You could be the Charles Gaba of privacy.
Right. Why not? I don't see why not. We launch stars at Daily Coast.
We do.
There you go, right? There's no 538 without us.
Nope.
And, well,
although
there probably would have been.
538 doesn't necessarily recognize that fact.
No, but that's because they moved to the New York Times side of things, that they don't recognize anybody.
That's true.
So, they're a little bit slow to that. All right. Well, now we'll just have to keep an eye on the ball and keep guessing as to what's coming. By the way, I'll include for everybody here, I found a nice piece in the Detroit Free Press about the Madden case. And,
oh, good. Thank you.
And it tells us a little bit about where it happened and what was going on. And did you know he was hauling a truck full of frozen meat, so they were very worried about him abandoning his load in the freezing cold, apparently. By the way, he warmed up, he saved his own life, then he went back to the truck and he made all his deliveries.
Yeah.
In case you were wondering. And all the meat was fine because it was frozen and so was the rest of the world. And it was minus 14 degrees in his truck cab when he left.
Yeah.
So I think the meat was fine.
And, the load was absolutely fine.
And although I guess it could have been stolen or hijacked by Russian mobsters at the time when he left it by itself.
Who were out taking advantage of blizzards.
Right. Yes, everybody was out in the blizzard. In Russia, again, like in Vermont, they say, that's not even cold. I'll go out for a walk just to see if I can steal abandoned meat, as frequently happens here in northern, I think, in Michigan. He's from Detroit, Mr. Madden is. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure where the truck was, but interesting nonetheless. That all of that, the load was safe. He just, I guess, the company's perspective, we didn't know it was safe while you were out there gallivanting around to warming stations and hospitals or whatever you were doing. I think he went to a truck stop and warmed up, which is amazing that he didn't have to go to the hospital.
It is.
But, okay, well, it's a hell of a story. I'll include it for everybody in the roundup. And,
thank you.
Thank you for bringing it up and for giving me a minute to do well, I did do Googling, but from now on I'm going to do what?
DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGoing.
And in fact, it is a slightly wonky search engine. It doesn't necessarily, particularly if you're used to Google, but through DuckDuckGo you can still do a Google search. Put in ! Google and then do your search and you can get into a protected, it's sort of an encrypted version. Encrypted is the wrong word, but an untracked version of Google.
That's pretty cool. We have to learn about these things before the robots come for us.
We do.
All right.
Let's see. We're going to be talking about the wall.
Yes. Okay.
Which is probably not happening.
Yeah.
Sanctuary city plans. The U.S. women's hockey team.
Yes. I'm behind on this story.
As am I, but Laura's going to be writing about it, so you can catch up on it.
Okay. I saw something from her last night on it, and I said, need to know. Asterisk. Mark this thing. Come back. But then Paul Manafort stole $1 billion, and I went to that instead.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty interesting.
Yes, it is. It is. Both of these stories are pretty interesting, and I feel like culturally out of it for not knowing the hockey story.
Well, you'll be able to learn about it from Laura.
Terrific. No one better.
Mark will certainly be keeping us up to date as much as possible on whatever it is that Devin Nunes is doing.
Right.
On his trips back and forth to the White House.
He's sneaking in and out through tunnels. They don't know. Again, a security problem.
But don't worry about it. Paul Ryan says it's fine.
Yes. I guess. I don't know. We'll see what else turns up and who else is sneaking in and out of the White House. They also keep finding people on the lawn.
Yeah.
Is that happening? What's
Which,
that about?
might be Devin Nunes.
Right. They don't say who it is.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I keep thinking of that. Remember that photo of, there was a Bush press conference at some point and Cheney is off in the shrubs in the...
Yes. Yes.
I don't think they track who goes on the lawn there.
And when Cheney is lurking around you, it's really scary.
Yeah. I wish that was one of those things that you could see like on Google Earth or something.
Where's Dick Cheney now?
All right. Well, okay. Well, let's see. Anything else that might be coming up that we got to keep an eye out? I think you hit a bunch of the highlights there.
I did my best.
Yes.
So
I'm sure there'll be a
who knows what the day will bring.
There's
we have these plans in the morning.
Right.
They don't necessarily pan out because anything can happen when you're dealing with this administration.
Yeah, I guess so. So we'll keep an eye on whether the president goes crazy and tweets
and
something.
We'll do our best to stay on top of it.
All right. Thanks very much, Joan. Always good to have some idea what's going on. Thank you.
Next week we can talk more about Supreme Court and going nuclear.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be at that point where we'll at least know whether they're about to do it or delay it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then, we can talk about shutting down government.
Right.
Always fun. Yeah. Always fun.
Well, this time there's hardly anyone in it. So maybe they'll finally be right that no one will notice. The Republicans have been banking on that for a long time. It's
entirely possible.
Oh. Well, we'll see. Thanks again. And, we'll check in with you next Wednesday as usual.
Absolutely. Have a good week.
Thank you. You do the same. Joan McCarter, our senior political writer at Daily Kos. And one of the few people whose names I actually call out as they come in and leave, including myself. One of these days, a note to self, professionalize the operation so that you are identifying your broadcast and yourself and your guests more frequently. But I think we have kind of we have a cult audience here. All the good parts of the cult. We leave all the bad parts of the cult out of it. But everybody seems to know enough about what's going on. Plus, the stuff we talk about seems interesting enough. I don't care who this is. This is great. I want to listen in. Okay, let's see. We have just a few minutes here. Let's see, can I give another taste of what TextFire was talking about in his Cambridge Analytica view? I probably don't have enough time to squeeze any more of that in. Or I guess I should say, well, look, I'm looking at the very next paragraph. I wanted to get back to this. He's got a very interesting abbreviation, I suppose, of Cambridge Analytica, which he begins to call, I guess for the balance of the article, CAMB, C-A-M-B, Analytica gets shortened to, it gets shortened to anal. That's what it looks like. Cambanol, I guess would be the very nice way of saying it, but Cambanol is the way it looks because he capitalized the A. Cambanol. Yikes. Well, Cambanol, I don't know, is also under investigation, it turns out, for UK election violation and UK data protection violation, possibly also in context of the US election, and has had official complaints filed against it in the U.S. for potential electoral impropriety. That we probably guessed about. I'll just finish up by saying, I guess in this next paragraph, importantly, it seems apparent that bot account networks and hashtags, cookie-cutter websites / blogs, and secret social media dark posts visible only to curated individual citizens were deployed, often based around disinformation, aka fake news, in order to alter opinions, but also to manufacture trending topics, commandeer political narratives, and manipulate the larger socio-cultural dialogue of the entire populace. which is yikes level stuff, of course, but it's been hinted at in the past in a number of other write-ups. I will include this, of course, in the roundup of links that I give to Scott Anderson, who will kindly put together the roundup of the all the stories that we used and all the topics we touched on today's show for ease of indexing, in case anyone ever were to make an index. You should take a look at this thing and give some real thought to what this means. I don't think that there's been a lot of discussion about what this bill might mean for Cambridge Analytica and those working in the same areas. But if they could just lift this information wholesale, it would save them an awful lot of trouble and would only help them refine their models and make even more trouble, if they're making any trouble at all. It might be really interesting to reveal them as snake oil salesmen all along, but I'm not willing to have the ISPs selling all that information in the meantime just to figure out what that is. And then, of course, lots of people, I think, quite rightly thinking about, well, does this mean you can find out information about particular people? And if so, is the information for sale to just anyone? I guess it would be just anyone, right? And does that mean can I go? Can you go? Can we crowdfund the effort to go get Donald Trump's browsing history of all the members of Congress who voted for this bill, our neighbors, who, what? I'm not sure what limitations there might be on it, but I'm sure that there's some good mischief that can be made. And maybe if we can make clear over the next couple of weeks exactly how much mischief can be made, things might somehow change for the better, but I guess under the Trump administration I wouldn't count on it. Anyway, what you can count on, I can tell you now, is that all the rest of the stories that you heard about this morning and felt sure I would cover but never got around to, they will all be covered on the After Show, coming up next on Netroots Radio, so stay tuned. The notorious Ruth Bader Ginsburg tells Texas to stop ignoring science. You might as well tell the wall to stop ignoring science, too. But okay, 2 black women who worked for Fox News file suit against the network claiming top-down racial harassment. Not hard to believe over there. And the U.S. women's national team ends its boycott after securing an historic contract from USA Hockey. I'm already too late to the story, but they knew that at the After Show, and they'll tell you all about it coming up next, right after these messages.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Thank you very much for listening. Do stay tuned, of course, on the last half of the After Show. Coming up next, they'll be reporting on forest protection to mitigate climate change, and your browsing history, of course, now being sold to third-party vendors, and the GOP's fear of the nuclear option over Gorsuch. Let's find out more about that fear. Stay tuned.